Benefits Britain unleashed for setting on the ARSE 4 million Brits. Let's watch this. It could be interesting. Some may like it, some may not. GB News time.
Yes, benefit spending is rapidly running out of control, with nearly 4 million people at risk of abandoning work permanently as they continue to be paid out-of-work benefits without any obligation to search for a job. Meanwhile, 2 million more people will be claiming disability benefits by the end of the decade as mental health problems push the cost of the taxpayer up by more than 50%. Those figures alone represent nearly 10% of the entire British population. Speaking on his show last night, GB News' very own Jacob Rees-Mogg suggested what may be going on here.
This costs you a fortune, £260 billion a year, and is growing. That's about 20% of all public expenditure, which falls on rich and poor taxpayers alike. And it's the failure to incentivise people to work that then allows it to become a lifestyle choice paid for by others that seems to me to be the problem.
Okay, so is it a lifestyle choice? Let me know your thoughts by heading to gbnews.com/your-say or tweet me at gbnews, and while you're there, make sure you vote in our poll. The results to follow shortly. But first, going head-to-head on this, entrepreneur and businessman Mike Green and reality TV star Gemma Lucy. Both of you, thank you very much. Great to have you on the show. Mike, I'll start with you. Is being on benefits a lifestyle choice?
Well, I'm not sure it's a choice, but they're certainly not choosing to go to work, are they? They're taking the benefit of such an easy, lackluster, lazy system that makes it easy for them to stay at home.
Okay, Gemma, your view, same question.
I don't necessarily think it's a lifestyle choice either, but I don't think that the alternative is that great. Minimum wage is awful. I think that people who do get a job, you're working all these hours to make probably not a lot more, and I don't think people are living a good life on benefits either. So when they're choosing, or when they are on benefits, it's not like they're living the high life and thinking, this is great, let me just stay on benefits for the rest of my life. It's probably still pretty bad.
Is that a good enough excuse, though, Mike? Should people not have a bit more personal pride to go out, get up in the morning, go to work?
Yeah, they should. But on that point, I can completely agree with Gemma in the sense that the gap between benefits and the lower income earners is too small. We are not paying a livable wage to the people at the bottom end of income. And because of that, you've got people who put in a 40-hour week, maybe even do some overtime, and they're still sofa surfing. They cannot afford to live. It cannot be right that they're only marginally above people on benefits. We should be paying more to those that are willing to work and paying even less to those that want to sit at home and do nothing.
Look, I'm just going to introduce a clip. Okay, which we've got. So it's indistinguishable. Indistinguishable, really, this, from reality or not. I'm going to bring it up now. So this is a chap who's running through his benefits list. I'll talk you through it, all right? So his income is about 2,000 and odd every single month. On that, he breaks down what he can get for that on benefits, all right? So it includes things like booze, Sky Glass full package, there as well, vet bills for some kind of parrot, I think it's right in saying, all sorts of stuff there, really, on all of that. A tanning salon as well, phone, looks like, yeah, load, all sorts of stuff. I mean, Gemma, we're paying for this, is that right?
Well, that's just one person, what they choose to do with their bills. I mean, their benefits. But what I think is that there's not enough jobs out there at the minute. And I think this is like a domino effect of all sorts of things, from COVID, from, say, even the education system. I don't even think our education system teaches people enough on how to make money outside of the rat race of society. You know, we're all taught to kind of go into these jobs, work, slave away from 8 in the morning till 8 at night, don't ever see your families. And when those jobs aren't available, nobody really knows what else to do. So I think that there's like a domino effect from all sorts. And then you go all the way back to COVID, where we were told, don't work, your jobs, you can't go to work. If you've got small businesses that you've spent 20 years building up these businesses, they're now gone, it's scrapped. So, you know, the choices aren't that great. And I think the whole kind of energy of this country is quite depressing and negative.
Yeah, but is that not because people are depressing and negative, Mike? I mean, if you have a bit about you, you can go to work, you've always got the chance. Going to work is like buying a lottery ticket. If you go to work and you turn up, you might get promoted. You might go and get that next big job. Your CV is going to look better. A big company somewhere else might come in for you. You might get headhunted, and before you know it, you might have that 5-bedroom detached house somewhere in the country and a roaring fire and a cockapoo. You know, it's fantastic stuff, all right? But if you don't go to work, you don't have a chance.
Patrick, it makes my blood boil. I mentor between 50 and 60 businesses at any point in time, and I've mentored thousands of businesses. I've run my own businesses. Do you know the average single person self-employed business is earning less than that little list you just showed me of benefits? They are working really hard. The government are taxing them. They might be turning over more, but by the time they've paid basic costs, they're earning less than that person who's, excuse my bluntness, but sitting on their arse. It is about time we made it tougher for these people who don't want to do it. And I also hear from these same people, they are struggling to get people to work. Why? It's too easy for them to be at home. There are jobs. They might not enjoy that job, but if not, learn some more things, get better, do a better job. Get off your butt and don't expect the government to look after you.
I don't think everybody's lazy though who's on benefits. What about single mums who have got 3 kids and they can't just go to work? They need benefits. They need to pay for their kids.
Could I ask you on that? Could I ask you on that, Gemma? Let me, sorry, Matt, let me just come in here, because I think, I know a lot of our viewers and listeners might be screaming at this, Gemma. I'm just keen to get your answer on this. Yeah, some people might say, well, if you've got 3 kids, right, why should we pay for that? Why should people have made that decision to have 3 kids?
Are you asking me?
Gemma, sorry, yeah.
I mean, it's not that you should have to pay for it, but I do think there should be some sort of sympathy towards that and a system in place. You know, people have kids by accident. Some people don't believe in abortion. Some people find out afterwards. Some people want to have kids. You know, some people want to make a family and that makes them happy. So at the end of the day, there is a benefit system in place. And I just think that the strategy needs to be better of who is actually benefiting from it in a way where it is for the reasons such as kids, or who is actually sitting on their arse. So I think that we need to try and decipher between the two a lot better.
Mike?
The problem is, Gemma, I think that we maybe both look at slight extremes. I don't know a single person that I've ever met or mixed with that isn't willing to pay for, support, look after the people who are unable or incapable of working. But
you're calling everyone on benefits lazy and on their arse.
We're talking about the millions that are sitting on their arses. My mum had 5 kids when she was a single mum at one point, okay? She went out early and often took those of us. My sister would stay at home, she'd take a couple of us, we'd help her do a cleaning job. In the evenings when we went to sleep, she did piecework, sewing materials that were brought to her, and she worked while we slept.
So you're expecting a woman to look after
people who aren't willing to work.
Go on, Gemma.
You're expecting a woman to look after all her kids, and then when her kids are asleep, when she's knackered all day, work all night. That's just ridiculous. That's not possible.
It was tough, but you know what? It taught us a good work ethic. The minute I could work, my brothers could work, my sisters could work, we wanted to look after my mother. And there was a responsibility within families. She looked after us if we didn't have work. We looked after her when she couldn't work. But so many kids expect to get a flat, expect to get paid, and don't want to work for it.
True people's opinions, though.
Supporting those that can't support themselves.
Everyone thinks
those
differently.
That don't want to get off their butt, I have a problem with.
I agree with you, but I just think that generalising, saying that's what everyone's doing on benefits, it just
I get that. I do understand, and I think we've picked the I'd say maybe extreme example. I don't know, the single mum with 3 kids, but I look at the figures here. 10% of the entire British population could well find themselves on benefits. And Gemma, there's no way that 10% of the British population need to be on benefits. And even if we up to the minimum wage, is this not a bad case of lazy-itis?
I don't think that all the 10% need to be on benefits, but like I said earlier, I think it's a domino effect from COVID, and I want to just go back to what I said about the education system. I think that people are not learning enough on how to make money outside of society, outside of the rat race, which can be depressing. People like Andrew Tate sort of talk about how to do things like e-commerce brands online and making money online, but I don't think anybody's ready for that conversation.
I think that is actually a really, really good point. Mike, I'll give you the final word on this, because I actually think that we should be looking at situations like this now in schools. We've done away with a huge number of apprentices, or certainly not actively encouraged them. What we have encouraged people to do is to go and do completely rubbish, meaningless university courses that saddle them with a lifetime worth of debt and probably suck the life out of them and drain a few brain cells with the 3 litres of Frosty Jacks you consume every day at Backwater University studying underwater basket weaving, when in fact we could be teaching people, look, this is how you can have a practical trade, or this is how you might be able to duck and dive a little bit, and this is how you might be able to, make a bit of money, completely legally, of course. We don't really do that, do we?
No, listen, on my podcast, I've had people like Charlie Mullins of Pimlico Plumbers. I've had Alfie Best, the gypsy billionaire. They didn't go to university. I didn't go to university. I don't know about yourself, Gemma, but in getting out to work, we had to then learn from life. And you know what? I didn't want to do some of the jobs I had to do. But getting in them, I earned some money. I felt what it was like to earn my own money, to be able to go out for a drink knowing I bought that drink, not more pressure on my mum to pay for that drink. And then I wanted to get better and do better. And we haven't instilled the work ethic in people, and we're actually demonizing apprenticeships and lower level jobs by basically making people feel a failure if they don't go to university. I completely agree. That is not the answer for young people.
Can I just say, both of you, thank you very, very much. That was absolutely top draw stuff, that, for head-to-head. That's Mike Green now, entrepreneur and businessman, and reality TV star Gemma Lucy. I hope to talk to you again both very, very soon. Look, who do you agree with? Was Jacob Rees-Mogg right that being on benefits is becoming a lifestyle choice? Tracy on X says, anyone who has grown up in a working-class area knows this is the truth and has been the truth for decades. So many people game the system, it's unbelievable. Rachel says, for some it is a lifestyle choice, but for others, like my husband, it sadly isn't a choice. Oh, gosh. After he was diagnosed with aggressive stage 4 throat cancer and unable to work since June 2018. And I think everyone, Rachel, firstly, obviously we wish you and your husband all the very best. And I don't think those are the kind of people at all that we're talking about when we're having this discussion about benefits. Gary says, I think benefits are becoming the choice for illegal migrants, but no one seems to care. Right. Your verdict is now in. 86% of you say that being on benefits is becoming a lifestyle choice. 14% of you disagree that it is not. Right.
Well, give me 2 seconds and I'm going to put part 2 on about this. Give me a minute. I have to change it over. Right, so what have I missed out here? There we go. Give me 1 sec.
If it feels like living in Britain is like living in a foreign country, that's because it is. You lucky taxpayers are £4.3 billion of the foreign aid budget being spent on refugees and asylum seekers. We are now spending more than 50% of our £9.9 billion bilateral aid budget within the UK. The EU has just passed a pointless new migrant quota deal that will make more people rush to the land of milk, honey and complete gullibility that is Great Britain. There's been a 239% increase in homeless refugees since 2021. Where are they going? Ah, yes, I imagine quite near the top of your local housing waiting list. We're closing migrant hotels in a bid to save money, but it's costing us more money because they'll all end up in social housing or private accommodation bought by you, the taxpayer. And the National Audit Office has said that around £1.2 billion is expected to be spent on housing migrants in large sites like RAF Scampton or Wethersfield. But back to the foreign aid issue now. International rules allow countries to count first-year costs of supporting refugees as overseas development assistance. So, that's what we're doing. But because you're all more intelligent than the government gives you credit for, you'll have already noticed that they're fudging the numbers, aren't they? You're still paying the £4.3 billion out of the foreign aid budget, but because these people aren't going to leave Britain or get a decent job and be able to support themselves for quite some time, if at all, you will probably be paying for them forever. And we can't hide that in the foreign aid budget forever, can we? Your massive tax bill is coming across the channel every single day. Is it too much to ask for a British government to put Brits first? This is now the worst of both worlds. We're still spending billions abroad, like giving Somalia £100 million in 2022. We gave £110 million to Nigeria. We once gave a load of money to a Kenyan rainmaker and an Ethiopian girl band. We've given the Taliban hundreds of millions of pounds. Just let me read this sentence to you. A statement from our government. Following the Taliban's capture of Kabul in August 2021, increased UK commitments meant Afghanistan became the UK's largest bilateral aid programme, with spending rising to £286 million in 2021 to 22. We're supposed to be giving them £151 million this year. After a long day of stoning women to death, having questionable relations with young boys and plotting to kill us all, they retire for the evening to sleep soundly on a bed of British taxpayers' cash. But you're paying for them when they come over here as well. But it's about more than the money, isn't it? When you look around, do you feel enriched? I mean, not literally, obviously, because we've already established that billions of pounds of your money is going to refugees and asylum seekers. I mean, culturally, societally. You feel more
The
safe?
tax bill
The British public
It's
are
paying for the
paying
migrants
every
that come over to the
single
UK
which
and
way.
Northern Ireland, Scotland,
And they are
Wales.
fudging
That's
the
why you're paying the
numbers
council
to try to
tax,
mask the true
not because
cost
of the
this.
police and the
Let's get
the
the
fire
thoughts
service.
of my panel
Because of the
this
migrants
evening. I'm very
and the council
gratefully
tax.
joined by the wonderful Nana Aquia. I've also got the founder of Global Britain, Aman Bakal, and of course the ex-Labour advisor, Matthew Larder. Nana, I'll start with you. I mean, this is just an affront. When are we going to start putting Brits first?
You know, it's like they don't care about us. I think they're more concerned with how
Yep,
we look to
precisely.
other countries, to other people around the world. So you always hear them bragging about, we're the fifth largest, or maybe that's the sixth now probably, we're the fifth largest economy, and, you know, whenever, and yet they're still giving money to China, still giving money to Pakistan, some of these countries which certainly don't need our help. We're still handing out money, but it's all about show. It's like, you know, when, you know, you see your neighbours, and your neighbours are all trying to make it look like everything's lovely and fine. This is what they're doing, but yet the British people, the British people need help more than ever, but yet we are bragging, and I feel as though this country is almost turning into a third world country.
We can't keep lying to the British public, man, about how much we're spending on asylum seekers and refugees. This is coming out of our foreign aid budget. It can't come out of it forever, and at some point they're going to have to publish the true cost of this as the years roll on.
Well, I keep on repeating myself, saying that we need an emergency stop to our international aid spending. It's as simple as that. We have a huge deficit, we have huge public spending, we have huge debt, and more important than anything else, we have people right here in this country that need that money more than anything else. Yes, we have a responsibility to help the most in need around the world, but that comes with serving our national interest first. Now, if we look at our veterans, for example, now Johnny Mercer, as a veterans minister, has done huge amounts of work to help veterans live a more better, more easier life. But the fact that he's had to be a veterans minister is an indictment to how bad veterans in this country have had it for so many years, for so long. So far more has to be done domestically first.
Matthew, I'm just reading here that the response from the Labour Party to this affront to the British taxpayer has been Labour's Sarah Champion, who is also the chair of the International Development Select Committee, who actually thinks the bad thing about this is that we're not giving more money abroad.
Well, this is the government is committed to spending this on international aid, and yet it fudges the figures so that it can spend the money on asylum seekers.
The internationals have come here, haven't they?
I think that what we need is an asylum system that works. You mock the European Pact. The idea of this European Pact is that people are processed in 5 days, not 5 years, which is probably the average time that you have in Britain.
If a country doesn't want to adhere to that pact, they can go through a lengthy process that may or may not result in them paying other countries to take more people, which they won't want to do.
Yeah, but the key thing is it's sensible processing at Europe's borders, so you don't, which hopefully will prevent some people coming here. But if we were, but the problem we've got is that if you take money out of the international aid budget, I think international aid is a valuable thing. I think it's important that a rich country like Britain helps the poorest in the world. But we are compared to the countries that we're giving it to. But we shouldn't be giving money to China. I agree, we shouldn't be giving money to China.
Why? We shouldn't be giving money to China, Pakistan, I would say as well. If we're so rich, why are so many of our own people struggling to live? We're not rich. I think we need to get out of that mindset. The government needs to stop talking as though we're some sort of rich nation.
We are still comparatively compared to the countries that we're helping, which is why we must make sure that the money only goes to the poorest countries, which is why money shouldn't go to China.
But look, I think it's fair to say that yes, Britain can play its role in the world in terms of helping those in the greatest.
Yes.
But having said that, I think every single so-called asylum seeker that's come across the channel as a dinghy-wala shouldn't be here in the first place.
I don't agree with you with the dinghy thing. Yes, absolutely. But I don't agree with you that we need to show our thing in the world and stuff. I think you get your own house in order before you start tidying up.
I mean, one of the aims of international aid is to try and make sure that people are able to stay in the part of the world they're from and they don't feel the need to cross the world to come here.
If foreign aid should mainly be used to help third world countries, right? What does it say about Britain? So the quote from the Centre for Global Development think tank, the new figures show record spending on refugee hosting, which with other domestic spend mean the government is now spending over 50% of the £9.9 billion bilateral aid budget within the UK. I mean, we are becoming a third world country.
Well, that's right.
Well, they're spending it here because the government has completely failed on asylum, because we have a completely failed asylum system, one of the most inefficient in Europe, and one that is costing the British taxpayer tens of millions. Whether you take it out of that pot or that pot, it all comes from the same source, which is the British taxpayer. So we need an asylum system that works, that processes people quickly, and people who shouldn't be here are sent home.
Well, I think we need an asylum system that actually treats actual genuine refugees for what they are, and not these illegal economic migrants that keep coming on. I mean, let's be honest, the vast majority of them are failed asylum seekers from Germany, from France, from Italy.
Which is why we need a system that processes people and sends people back when they fail.
But that doesn't really justify a lot of the money that we are sending in terms of foreign aid to those so-called countries that need the aid, to ridiculous
Well, it's
projects.
not working.
Well, we're sending them to projects where the money is unaccountable.
Yes.
It's probably ending up in the coffers of a lot of the government people in those corrupt countries. So it's not even working.
Somalia, South Sudan,
not working.
Afghanistan being right up there. I mean, why the heck are we slated to spend £151 million giving the Taliban in Afghanistan, essentially? People might argue it's going straight.
It's for feeding people who are at risk of famine in
That's not going to
Afghanistan.
get there, though. Let's be realistic, Matthew. A lot of those regimes where we're supposed to be sending money to help the people end up in the coffers of dodgy, corrupt.
But I think we should,
So I think
we should always be more efficient, and we should always make sure that it's properly accounted for. But in place, in some of the most damaged regimes in the world, the people paying the price are, we don't want to see children starving in these places. As long as the money gets to the
things rather than money, maybe they need vaccines or something like
yes,
that.
but it's not going to subsidise the Taliban regime. It's going to feed people in Afghanistan, and it's going through charities that work on the ground.
But there's also a debate to be had. Do we really want to be the world's arbiter when it comes to providing failed regimes with propping them up? I mean, surely, the regions themselves. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. The Middle East, for example, it's got some of the most richest parts of the world.
Absolutely,
they're not pulling their weight.
No, I agree with you. Other countries need to do their bit, and
it's ego again. We're the fifth largest or sixth largest economy in the world.
No, exactly. But look, when the truth essentially comes out about this, which is that we are only able to mask the expenditure on asylum seekers and refugees for a period of time, right? And that period of time is frankly coming to an end. £4.3 billion of the foreign aid budget being spent, and of course that is essentially due to international laws that allow us to class it as foreign aid developments essentially for a period of time. But they're still going to stay here. So next year, and the year after that, and the year after that, that is just taxpayers' money. They can't keep fudging it. I think when that lands on people, and the reality lands on people, governments are going to have a big problem.
Well, look, there's only one way to resolve this, and that is, as I keep on saying week after week, you pick them up in the middle of the channel and you drop them back on the French coast. What are the French going to do? Are they going to go to war with us?
Good luck finding somebody who's prepared to do that, because nobody in the Royal Navy will do that, and no sailors will do that, because it's against the international maritime law.
Well, no, but you're picking them up. You're not dumping somebody, so why can you not send them back? Or my idea is you've got the cruise ships all lined up. I tell you what, if they get on a cruise ship, they will stop coming.
Look, if Australia could do it, so could we. It needs political will. That's what it's
becoming harder and harder and harder to justify the amount of money. And when they're saying we're closing Margaret hotels, and then you realise that it's actually going to cost us a huge amount more to have these large sites which can only host around 800 to 1,000 people, which is a fair weather weekend on the English Channel, isn't it, realistically? You look at that, you look at the idea now that they are essentially masking this foreign aid budget and masking the amount of money that we're spending. There's only so long that you can keep this going before actually everybody wakes up.
Well, there we go. What else could be on the TV that we can have a look at and find out? There you can see me there, putting the thumbs up. Try and figure out what else is on this TV. They don't know what to do that to know. There's nothing on the TV. Look at David Cameron, I think.
Now, I would have paid anything to have been a fly on the wall last night at dinner at Mar-a-Lago, where Donald Trump was there with the British ambassador and with our foreign secretary, Lord Cameron. Let's have a look at what Cameron had to say about President Trump just a few years ago.
I think his remarks are divisive, stupid and wrong, and I think if he came to visit our country, I think it'd unite us all against him.
Cameron, of course. Cameron, ever the globalist, and Cameron, of course, a great friend of President Obama. His former conservative politics, very close to President Obama's, who, of course, if you remember, intervened in our referendum.
I'm going to have to put my phone on charge.
Brexit, you'll go.
My phone's going to go dying on battery. I have to put it on charge, I think. Then I can do more filming. Annoying when your phone decides to go on low battery, but there we go. Don't last forever, as one would say. Make a bloody song out of that. Don't last forever. It was never forever. It was only for a short time on this great world. Never is forever.
To the back of the queue. I'd love to have been there last night to see Cameron eating humble pie. Well, I'm joined down the line by Katie McFarland, President Trump's, of course, first Deputy National Security Advisor, and also somebody who held security posts in the Nixon, Ford and Reagan administrations. Who better than I hate to call you a veteran, but I'm going to have to call you a Republican veteran and an observer of these things. Isn't it funny? All these people, Katie, around the world who've been rude, vile about Donald Trump, in the end, they all have to come and break bread, don't they?
Well, not only break bread, but they've got to listen to what he's saying. And when Donald Trump's talking about, where he's talking about the Middle East, whether he's talking about China or the Ukraine war, they've got to take him seriously. And the great thing about Donald Trump, which you understand more than anyone, having been in the business world before the political world, is Donald Trump looks at all of these situations and doesn't say, let's send in the Marines or let's, talk about them at the UN. He says, let's use the economic weapon. Whether it's an economic weapon against Iran or the economic weapon against Russia, economic weapon against China. So not only was David Cameron eating humble pie after what he said and the insults he gave to President Trump, but he probably got an earful of a very different kind of policies than the ones he always had promoted in office and continues to promote.
Yeah, I mean, they say, the official communique says that they discussed Brexit, which of course Donald Trump was a big supporter of, and the British ambassador, I very much doubt, was, and certainly Cameron wasn't. They talked about defence spending. Maybe actually on this issue, Katie, there is now some degree of alignment because, Trump has made it clear that America will continue with its leadership in NATO, provided members pay the 2% fee.
The thing that is so annoying about this is when Donald Trump says things like pay up, pay up, pay up, talking about maybe the United States is rethinking its policy towards NATO. What he's really doing is grabbing people like David Cameron by the lapels and saying, pay attention, pay your fair share. So Donald Trump is trying to actually strengthen NATO because he wants the other members of NATO to contribute. He's not trying to weaken NATO, he's trying to strengthen it.
Where the difficulties would genuinely have been are over policy towards Ukraine, where, as you know, Cameron is saying to America, come on, keep pumping money into Ukraine, and pro rata, we will pump money into Ukraine as well. I detected strongly at CPAC, just a few weeks back when I saw you there, I detected quite a large sense, quite a large American feeling that they're not happy continuing to put money into Ukraine.
Yeah, but I would separate that from they want Russia to take over Ukraine. What President Trump has said is that on day one of the new Trump presidency, he'll do two things: close the border and drill, baby, drill. He is going to make the United States the dominant energy provider in the world. And that's going to, simple supply and demand. That drives down the price of oil and natural gas. It bankrupts Russia and it bankrupts Iran. So what's Donald Trump going to do for the rest of day one? He said at CPAC, he said, I'm going to get the Russian president on the phone and I'm going to say to him, unless you go to the negotiating table, I'm going to give Ukraine everything it needs, offensive weapons. And then he said, and then I'm going to call Zelensky and I'm going to tell him, unless you go to the negotiating table, I'm not going to give you any weapons. And so Donald Trump is looking at a way to stop the killing, find a negotiated solution. And then, by the way, and this is what everyone misses when they say, well, that means Trump wants to abandon Ukraine. No, he doesn't. What he wants to do is bankrupt Russia. Wars are expensive. And the combined Western contributions to Ukraine are probably $100 billion and that's to buy a stalemate. Trump is looking at a very different perspective. He's saying, I'll bankrupt Russia so they can't afford to pay for a war, and then I'm going to force a negotiation, and then the West will invest in Ukraine, rebuild Ukraine, be completely, take Ukraine in all the NATO organizations and the European Union organizations. NATO will be fully integrated. Meanwhile, after the fighting and the killing stops, where's Russia? Bankrupt, broke, nobody's investing in Russia.
Well, you know, the casualty figures from the first couple of years of war are the equivalent to the Battle of the Somme in 1916. About 1 million casualties now between the two sides. It is genuinely horrific what is going on there. But it's so often the case, isn't it, that Trump is willfully misinterpreted on both the American domestic scene and the global scene. That what he wants to achieve, the way he says things, are horribly misquoted. Do you think that David Cameron, whatever his prejudices may have been, do you think David Cameron would have come away from a proper sit-down with Trump actually quite impressed with his foreign policy ideas?
Well, I hope he has, but you know him better than I do, Nigel. What do you think?
Well, I actually think that when you sit and talk to Trump, rather than reading what the New York Times says Trump said, but actually listen to what he says himself, you get a very, very different perspective. And I would like to think that Cameron has been impressed by Trump, and whatever difficulties or differences he may have had, and hey, you know, we've got a Labour government coming in later this year, it's 99% certain. You know, whenever we think about individual politicians, it is in our national interest, both of us, that the UK and America have a close relationship. And I think Trump understands that too, doesn't he?
Yeah, you know, one of our thoughts in the beginning of the Trump administration was, if Britain left the European Union, Brexit, which you were the one that managed to pull off, if that had happened, the first thing we would have done is a US-UK trade agreement. The United States does not have trade agreements with the European Union. We don't have a lot of trade agreements. You don't either. But if you had a US-UK trade agreement immediately, we don't have a whole lot of issues between us that we disagree on. But that kind of a trade agreement would have boosted both of our economies overnight. And I think that's still in the back of Donald Trump's head. Is a UK-US deal, I'm all for it.
Well, we look forward to that if and when he wins the election. Are you feeling confident, Katie, that your man's going to win on November the 5th?
I think that the American people are supportive of Trump. What I worry about is the kind of interference in our elections that has happened in the last 2016 and 2020, which is the intelligence community, whether it was with the Russia hoax or whether it was and I don't want to get too much in the weeds, but intelligence officials basically said that Hunter Biden and his laptop and Joe Biden were not having, you know, corrupt activities. So I'm worried that it'll be stolen, not stolen necessarily at the ballot box or computers or voting machines. I'm worried that there'll be election interference of disinformation against Donald Trump.
Yeah.
The same thing you just talked about, you know, misquoting him, taking him out of context, making him look like somebody he's not.
Yeah. Katie McFarlane, as ever, an absolute pleasure to talk to you, whether it's face-to-face or down the line as this evening. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, there we go.
Sending money with Remitly is more than just a transaction. It's a connect.
A lot of things to talk about on here. It's like 10 past 12 at night time for me in the UK. I've hit my fingers for holding the phone for so fucking long. Right finger bloody hurts here. Ow. Anyway, I'll probably end the video. Thank you all for joining me, and catch you in the next one. Take it easy. Peace. See you later.